Windows worked for generations because it made the pie larger. We sold the same thing to the same person over and over again. So it's not a zero-sum game. The idea is growing the pie and making it larger.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And in this week's episode, we are joined by Greg Marcus, the chairman, CEO, and president of Marcus Corporation, the parent company of Marcus Theaters, one of the largest theatrical exhibition circuits in North America. Greg and I go over our insights and just feedback from CinemaCon 2025. A long week in Las Vegas, but one full of exciting updates on the studio side. And Greg shares his thoughts on everything from the 45-day window pitch to the 4 to 5 trailer cap in the pre-show, and even his thoughts on this Narnia Netflix deal going to IMAX, how, if in any way at all, that benefits theaters. That's coming up on the second half of this episode. In our panel today, we've got Rebecca Pahle back from sick leave. Rebecca, welcome back.
Thanks. I got positive COVID tests the Thursday before CinemaCon, and yeah, there just wasn't any way for me to make it there. But I feel like, luckily, I know exactly where to go to catch up on what went on over the week.
Yeah, you do have an inside line on everything. And joining me again here is Chad Kennerk, back from Vegas, this time healthy. I think you and I are holding up so far.
Yeah. So we're crossing our fingers on that.
Yeah, I mean, I am exhausted. And of course, I come back from like a trip where I have maybe 3 hours of sleep a night just with our deadlines. And my 2-year-old is having a sleep regression, 5 a.m. wake-ups all week coming back from CinemaCon. That's a new brand of torture.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just take me back to the casino, please. But it's always nice to come back home to a crying infant. And especially to a booming box office, because after the worst March since 1995, that's the worst March in 30 years at the box office, out of nowhere, Warner Brothers' The Minecraft movie comes out and completely overperforms a $163 million opening weekend, bigger than Barbie. Coming in, to give you an example here, guys, the March box office ended up making just under $400 million total, all titles combined domestically. Minecraft pumps in $163 million, nearly half of that into the box office over one weekend here. And we are off and running in a recovery that we expected to come in on Memorial Day weekend. It now starts in April. And man, I always liken this industry to a heavyweight boxing match, because of course I would, where one punch changes everything. You can be losing the fight 11 out of the 12 rounds, one punch at the right time, one movie at the right time. If it connects, it changes everything. And that's what I think we're looking at here in 2025. Rebecca, we got some updates from our friends in exhibition on some of the record-breaking numbers that they experienced in their theaters.
Yeah, I mean, it broke a ton of records. Like you say, Cineplex pointing out that their grosses for that first weekend are more than half of what every film for them earned last month. And the same stat true for April of 2024.
That's incredible. So in 3 days, Cineplex, the largest chain in Canada, basically hit half their total box office of March.
Of March and of April last year, which I mean,
respectively, right?
Yeah,
So
not combined,
incredible.
but still amazing stats. This is the typical and I think welcome statistic for the industry of late. Premium formats really over-indexing for this title. 33% of the opening weekend audience for Minecraft AMC theaters came from premium auditoriums of some sort. This comes right in line with AMC's CinemaCon announcement of really expanding their footprint in terms of Dolby, IMAX, ScreenX, 4DX auditoriums in the United States. So definitely meshes together. Cinemark also had its highest grossing weekend ever in a D-Box motion seating auditorium format release. So always great to see that. That's the one that I've never had an opportunity to try because
I'm a big fan.
They don't have any like close to us here in New York.
Yeah, you have to find your way to a D-Box auditorium. I actually made a point to go see our friends there at their booth at CinemaCon because I don't know if you know this, D-Box does the motion seating integration for a number of racing teams. So when it comes to like a racing simulation, in my opinion, there's no immersive seat that's better. So I can't wait to see F1 specifically in that format. But it's great to hear that you don't need car races. Minecraft blocks are just as good. Record opening for Cinemark in this format.
Yeah, and Cineplex as well. 64% of opening weekend ticket sales for Minecraft movie coming from all premium experiences combined. We're seeing records being broken at chains across the board.
And of course, that momentum doesn't stop on the premium format side. Chad, looking at the daily splits here, it looked like Saturday ended up overperforming significantly compared to the other days of the weekend.
Yeah, Saturday estimated 60 million, Friday 58 million, and then Sunday 39 million.
Incredible results here. It's very rare to see a Saturday gross come in ahead of the combined Thursday previews and Friday total. We had this, I think, just reflecting the family nature of this title, a $313 million global launch for a Minecraft movie. Again, just incredible results here. Looking over at the top overseas markets, we had a $19.3 million opening in the UK, making it the top overseas market on the weekend. In second place was China with 14.5 million. Third place was Mexico with 11.1 million. And fourth place was Germany with 10.3 million. That's the top four here on the overseas side. It's great to see this momentum in the industry. And after all of the titles we saw last week, I don't know about you, Chad, but I'm feeling really, really positive for a change. The weather's getting warmer. Like flowers are blooming. Forget about my child waking up at 5 a.m. The box office is clicking.
Gen Z is coming back to the movie theaters.
Yeah.
That's what we needed, Rebecca.
Yeah. And we've seen how the success of one title can help that momentum leading into what promises to be a big summer.
Yeah, and I think that's something that the industry really needs to capitalize on. And that reminds me on a press release that we got from Cinema United's Cinema Foundation last week, Chad, where an initiative that was teased during CinemaCon on a trailer program of upcoming footage of a film slated for later this year is going to make it over to moviegoers nationwide. Can you tell me about this At the Movies initiative? When is it? What is it? How much does it cost?
Yeah, the Cinema Foundation rolling out the announcement of the sneak preview showcase, which is going to give some trailers, some behind the scenes looks, things that we saw at CinemaCon, but bringing that to moviegoers everywhere. It's happening April 22nd and April 24th, I believe at 6 p.m. local time. The tickets are $3, but that is funding that's going to go to industry charities, Variety the Children's Charity, Will Rogers Motion Picture Pioneers Foundation, and the Cinema Foundation. So you can find more out at atthemovies.co, and it'll be interesting to see what they choose to reveal, all five of the big studios. We've got Amazon MGM too.
They're throwing in there as well. That's great to see them included in this too. A really good initiative. We've been saying this for years. It's great for us in the industry to check out all this upcoming footage and get excited about movies, but imagine the value of this being available to moviegoers. And that's going to be happening, as Chad mentioned, on April 22nd and 24th. So, Rebecca, you missed CinemaCon, but you can experience a 70-minute version at the movies.
I'm getting such trailer FOMO. Just before you hopped on, I was just quizzing Chad about, like, what did we see for Predator Badlands?
Oh, we saw Predator. Not the whole thing, of course, but we saw enough to get really excited. Dude, that looks so good.
I mean, not that I miss seeing everyone I know at CinemaCon. I don't miss those staying up until midnight to record evenings. But yeah, it's a little bit of absence makes a heart grow fonder situation. We have to take this year off, I gotta say.
$3 a theater near you and you're good. Yeah, we really did get to see, I think, a lot of exciting movies. And I really hope that audiences do turn out for this initiative from the Cinema Foundation coming up later this month. I'm not sure they'll be able to see the extended grisly footage we saw from the new Final Destination's Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to make it out there.
That was graphic.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's a hard R if you do that. Yeah.
Because that's the whole point of going to see the movie, so I don't want to be spoiled on that. Yeah. I'm seeing it anyways.
I have to say, I had a lot of reactions, obviously, at CinemaCon, and you can listen to all of those reactions in any of our daily episodes from our podcast that we recorded last week. But Chad, that was probably the most popcorn moment of all the footage we saw,
Mm.
guessing how that kill scene was going to go. It was grisly. It was kind of gross. It kept you guessing. It's just, there's a very fun year at the movies for folks out there. And I'm glad that it's already started. I'm glad there's already packed audiences with this Minecraft movie. I don't know if you saw in Antwerp, Belgium, we ran this story on our website. There is a Minecraft-themed 4DX auditorium where they just decked out the entire auditorium Minecraft style. I would love for these themed auditorium concepts, especially on the PLF basis, right? Because you're just playing that one title from 1, 2, at most 3 weeks. Just deck that out in a different theme every time. Make it a little bit more immersive wherever you can. Those little details go a long way. You can check out that story on our website, boxofficepro.com. And really beyond that, I don't want to distract from the good news. We're back. We're making money. There's movies coming out soon. And this whole industry, I think, is more committed than ever in making this year a success. And to speak more on that is Greg Marcus, the chairman, CEO, and president of Marcus Corporation, the parent company of Marcus Theaters, joining me in a conversation with his insights and feedback from CinemaCon 2025 that is coming to you right after this word from our sponsor this week, Arts Alliance Media.
Find the freedom to greet more guests, to tear more tickets, and to pop more corn. With screenwriter and producer, the industry's leading theater management software from Arts Alliance Media, cinemas can free site-level staff from limited appearances to customer experiences. Discover time-saving automation to spend less time on back-office operations and more time creating the magic your audiences deserve.
Well, Greg, welcome back to the podcast. Always good to talk around the CinemaCon season. I don't want to get too familiar here, but it's a tradition by this point, I feel. It's a nice catch-up to get your thoughts and insights on everything that happened in CinemaCon.
I love talking to you too, Dan.
So let's chat about the event because there were a lot of studio presentations, a lot of talking points there, but I do want to start with your reaction to that 45-day window pitch. And to be clear, 45-day minimum window pitch that we heard so much about, a number of exhibitors, Cinema United President and CEO Michael O'Leary addressing the topic during his State of the Industry speech. Is 45 days viable? Is it enough? What's your thoughts on the matter?
Well, I mean, I'd like more, but it needs to be. I mean, viable. I'm glad you used the right word because we want our industry to be viable. And we have to have a longer period of exclusivity. The data is showing us this. We are seeing that if you look at the top 10 films, and if you use the model by one studio that basically says that anything under the top 10, anything under $50 million is subject to a 17-day window on a PVOD. Those films that are below the top 10 are off 30% from the top 125. Where the top 10, which are subject to a longer window, are only down 8%, 8.5%. They're looking pre-pandemic to now. And not just 1 year, sort of an average of the average of a couple years before, and 3 years before, and 2 years after. And so the data is saying you need a longer window of exclusivity for this to get to where we need to be. Let's remember, this was an $11 billion industry, probably with inflation should be $12.5 billion. And now it's a $9 billion industry. And the studios charge us more, and they've moved the cost of physical distribution to us. And so that math just doesn't work. And the studios will say, oh, this short, because they say it's only PVOD and the drops don't get affected. Well, okay, then you tell me, why are we a $9 billion industry? If Windows is not an important part of this, then what is it? And by the way, I can also point to other data that we track that shows that if you look back over a long trace of time, as the window slowly shrunk, the per capita visitation proportionally shrunk with it in the United States. So the number of times someone would come, let's say it used to be the average citizen used to come 4 times, and over it, let's say, I don't know, it was a 15-year time frame, it went down to 3.5. But we were kept at flat because people would say, well, attendance is roughly flattish, but we're making up box office because we're raising prices. And the population is growing. So as the population grows, even though per capita visitation goes down, ticket sales really don't go down very much. Well, when you virtually eliminate the window or reduce it so dramatically, it's no surprise to see where we are. We actually did an extrapolation 6 years ago, pre-pandemic, said if the window goes down to 30 days, you have a $9 billion business. Huh, what a surprise. And so Is it all just Windows? No, it's not all just Windows. We need more product too. We know that. But the studios are releasing less product. It's harder. I think that maybe it's harder to market to people that in terms of they're not all in the same place. And I don't know how efficient the spend can be. I was with a group of kids today, and they get all their information from TikTok. And we seem to be pretty good at getting information out on movies to TikTok because the kids we know are back. As a demographic, we know the kids are back. The adults, they're not on TikTok. So we got to figure out how to get to them. And have the studios abandon TV because they think the TV isn't where it's at anymore? I don't know, but we need more marketing dollars. We need more films. And we need a longer window.
Yeah, I think that's at the core of this conversation. Another thing raised by a number of studio folks at CinemaCon was the number of trailers before a feature, whether they're 60 to 90 seconds long or even up to 5 minutes long. Trailer placement, trailer numbers, trailer time, that seemed to be a surprising focus of the conversation. I have to be honest, I didn't see this topic coming. Some of these initiatives have been discussed in the past. Where do you land with this trailer conversation and just the pre-show in general?
I am one that believes very much that from our listed showtime to when we play the movie, really 15 minutes is about where we need to be, 15 to 18 minutes. You go longer than that, and people start to say, you know what, you're putting a negative spin on the experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that's not something that we should be doing. We're trying to get more customers back in the theater. And so I'm one who believes, and we stick pretty closely to that, to keeping it to 15 to 18 minutes. Now, if we can get shorter trailers and play more of them, great. We know it's a very valuable period of time. And in terms of valuable for us, valuable for advertisers, valuable for trailers, which is advertisers, basically. And so for us, that's how we handle. I believe it's important. And I believe if you play games, and like I know people that are that talk about, well, let's play the pre-show, the advertising package in the 5 minutes into the showtime. You know what's going to happen? I can promise you what's going to happen. People are going to adjust and show up 5 minutes late, and maybe even a little bit later. And once you start getting away from showtime, I think you start losing. So you could have a really potentially negative impact on trailers by doing stuff like that. I know why they're doing it, because they want people to be they want them in their seats to catch some of that valuable advertising time. I think you're better off maybe just interspersing a little bit of it into the pre-show, into that period of time, into that 15-minute window where the trailer package is playing. Put a couple of ads in there. Start with a trailer. Don't overdo it, and try and keep it to 15 to 18 minutes.
I think that seems to be the really writing sense here when we talk about this topic. The pre-show seems to be a surprising focus on making sure that experience stays top-notch. Another part of that experience conversation takes place with investments and where you're allocating CapEx on a circuit-by-circuit, theater-by-theater basis. We saw that press release from Cinema United last year saying that the top circuits in the U.S. are allocating $2.2 billion in upgrades in the coming years to theaters. Where is Marcus looking at in terms of your allocation of this CapEx?
Well, remember, we're a little bit different than others. We put a fortune into our theaters pre-pandemic. We really had maybe I would argue that probably the premier physical plant in the country, in the industry, we were fully reclined. We have advanced food and beverage. We've got the largest number of PLFs relative to our circuit size in the industry. That's mainly, I would say, because we don't lease our theaters, we own our real estate, so it allowed us to move a lot faster. So pre-pandemic, we were really ahead of the curve. So we don't have as much, but I would say it's important. I'm glad you bring up the topic, because this relates back to the Windows discussion or the viability discussions. The studios, which I believe they want us to be a part of their ecosystem, it's a win-win. We're part of making the pie larger. I think we've dispelled this notion that you can only have one sale, and that's to a subscription customer. I think when they thought the Netflix TAM, total addressable market, was 1 billion people, that they thought, okay, well, 1 billion people, if we get that, then we'll be able to just release movies on streaming and we'll make all of our money back. But I think what they're finding out is that's not the case. And so they need to have a windowed environment and be able to take multiple kicks at the cat and sell it multiple times. Got to keep the exclusivity periods long enough to actually be able to do that. But what it all comes down to at the end of the day is where I started with the economics of the business. We need viable economics. We need to be able to attract investment into our industry. That $2.2 billion has got to drive a return. No one's going to give us money if we can't give them a return. Now, I'm not saying we need to be the richest guys on the planet, but I heard one time there was a studio head that said, let's run the numbers to find out what we can charge theaters. What's the maximum we can charge them before they go broke? I'm hoping that was an educational exercise just for his own edification, but what they should figure out is what's the most they can charge us and still have us get a return on our investment such that we can attract investment so that the theaters that they play their movies in can be nice, so that it can be state of the art, and that the movies then will have greater value as they move through their cycle, through the windowing cycle.
Yeah, of course, that's going to be a key component here for that success. And breaking through this 9 billion streak, as you mentioned, it's unless there's a real change structurally to the way business has been done in the last 2 to 3 years, it's going to be 9 and change for the foreseeable future. Now, we don't expect that to be the case. More movies are coming up. We're seeing major studios like Disney give longer exclusivity windows, where 4 years ago they were all in on PVOD. What's preventing a 45-day minimum right now? How close are we to that being a reality? Still some ways away, or are minds slowly changing now that the data's out there?
I don't know. I'm glad we're talking about it and having a dialogue about it. I think there's a combination of things that we have to get through. One is the issue of the studios themselves are struggling, right? Their linear networks are very challenged. And so they're basically like in the couch cushions looking for every quarter. Now, you have to be very careful not to, if you've got one part of your body something that's not working in your business, not to let that put so much pressure on another part of your business that you end up with 2 parts of your business not working. That doesn't make sense. It's hard not to do that, though, because you feel pressed. You're like, okay, we got to figure out how to get through this time. Mm-hmm. So maybe spinning off the linear networks will be helpful to getting us through that, because then there'll be less pressure. I think the other thing, too, is that we've got to give some of them an off-ramp. How do we get them to say, okay, it's because we have a little problem that the information is very asymmetric, right? We don't get to find out. No, they won't tell us how PVOD is doing. So we can't say, hey, guys, if you could push it out another 30 days, you're not going to really have that much of a decline in sales. Now, maybe that's us helping them market, their ancillary markets. I don't know, but somehow we have to help them get an off-ramp so that they can get the pie to be larger. I saw someone said, oh, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Well, Disney put the toothpaste back in the tube, and I don't know how is it that they can do it, nobody else can. I'm lost on that one.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some changing attitudes, honestly, in the coming months and years on this. We've already seen some big players, like you said, say, hey, what worked for 100 years, turns out that's still viable, and we all still make money out of that model. Now, a big factor in this is the fact that we are in an industry today that has one less major studio than there was before 2020. That's something that gets lost in the post-2020 discussion. We always are quick to talk about the strikes and about the pandemic. But the fact is, one of the majors with a complete slate is gone. Now, coming into it, as we learned at CinemaCon this year, is the potential for Amazon MGM to come in. They already announced 14 theatrical titles. That's a huge help. As we see more streamers dedicate theatrical releases here and there, do you think that can make up the space that we lost in losing a complete studio slate with the acquisition of Fox to Disney?
I'll tell you this much. Amazon, they certainly felt like a major when I was sitting there in that presentation, and they played back sort of the history of MGM and all the great movies that MGM made. You said, okay, this feels like a major studio.
It's not more MGM than Amazon, I think, right?
Yeah, maybe they'll co-opt the name, but point being that they really sort of played up. We got this big history, and it was, all the great movies that they made felt like a major presentation. And so we got to make sure that they can give us a decent window. We'll have to be flexible at times. Okay. But as I've said, if a studio is going to be a good partner to us, we can help them when they need some help too. But it has to be a two-way street. It can't just be a one-way street, like where we jam the movies, coming out at 1,000,000 miles an hour. By the way, the customer, I didn't make this point earlier, but the customer, all they get is a button that says watch now. They don't know if it's $25 or $20 or free on their streaming service. That just says movies are in your house now.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a hard battle to fight, right? It's a hard communication point to bring up with a consumer. Part of that, as we look at streamers and release strategies, this was discussed at the executive roundtable that ended up on Matt Bologna's podcast last week. Cineworld Regal CEO Eduardo Acuna talking about the Narnia release, the upcoming movie by Greta Gerwig that is coming out with a limited 2-week run only in IMAX theaters. When they asked Eduardo if he was going to play it, he said, listen, we'll consider it. But, we've got great partners in Disney and great partners in Lionsgate that have movies on IMAX coming out in that window. So we'll have to see something a little bit more substantial from our folks over at Netflix. Does a 2-week premium only window help you guys at all? Or what's your reaction to something like that?
Zero. Does nothing for us. It's once again Netflix playing us. saying you're going to be you're a marketing gimmick, which is pretty much what they said for The Glass Onion. And I would love to have Netflix movies. They have $1 billion slate if they want it, and it makes money. I mean, if you look at financials of these studios, the movie divisions make money.
Mhm.
So Netflix could make money. I don't think they'd hurt themselves at all. Frankly, Netflix already plays a lot of studio fare. It's not like Netflix only plays Netflix stuff.
Right. I mean, the top performers on their platform are movies with long theatrical windows that played and succeeded in your theaters. The originals don't tend to stay in that top 10 list very long on streaming.
No, not at all. And so it would behoove Netflix to figure out how to get more movies in theaters, I think. But again, the thing I wish that, and I sometimes feel like the studios think that it's a zero-sum game. If we put it in the theatrical window, we're going to lose it somewhere else. We can't give it to you because otherwise we'll spend it in marketing somewhere. No, Windows worked for generations because it made the pie larger. We sold the same thing to the same person over and over again. And so it's not a zero-sum game. The idea is growing the pie and making it larger. And I think that if Netflix released movies in theaters, their pie would actually be larger. But they haven't called to ask my opinion.
Well, we'll see how that experiment plays out in, I think, 27 is when that Loria movie is scheduled to come out. Now, we had a lot of studio presentations, a lot of announcements, discussions in Vegas last week. What's your major takeaway from the event?
I think the major takeaway was the optimism I feel about having a discussion about the window and starting to have a discussion about where the industry is. Okay, first it was let's come back from the abyss, which we did. And now it's sort of, okay, we're at this level right now, and we need to keep growing the business. Again, it goes back to the economics. We need to grow the business so that the players can earn enough of a return to attract investors, such that the business can continue to perform and play its part in the ecosystem. It's funny, the studios get up on this and they say, you need to take care of your theaters. Now, part of the problem is they only see the theaters in the coasts, so they don't see what the rest of the country looks like. And the coast theaters are the most challenged I would say, of all of them because of the high cost of real estate investment costs. But, they say, you got to have a great theaters. If you don't do that, that's the price of admission. Okay, well, allow us then to have the economics so that we can do that.
I'll call it out. An executive once told me from another circuit that people from the studios tend to think that the entire exhibition industry is the AMC Burbank, which is a wonderful theater, beautiful theater. So maybe we should all in the industry just chip in to make that being a spaceship. So the studios realize that, hey, we're all in on this. But really, it is a much bigger ecosystem than just one or two multiplexes in the coast. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Now, to close out this conversation, I do have to say I got back from CinemaCon exhausted, was resting, and in my email from my loyalty program at Marcus, I got a video of you dancing to the Megan 2.0 craze that's going on. Where did you learn these moves? To our listeners, you can find this on social media. Greg's got some moves out there.
Well, as I sent the video to my daughter, my youngest daughter, who was a dancer for many years, and I said, I owe it all to you. But I will say I was reminded of my daughter because I did a thing, with her years ago. We did this daddy-daughter dance thing. And my daughter now is 23 years old, but she was a kid. And the whole point of daddy-daughter dance, I'm certain, is to embarrass the fathers. The daughters are these good little dancers, and the fathers are pathetic. The beauty of TikTok is that very few of my contemporaries ever see the insanity that my social media has me doing. And I basically just do whatever the social media people say to do.
It doesn't come up on board meetings.
Yeah, I try not to. But my social media people will say, do this, do that. I'll just do it because I trust them. I don't know what the kids want. I did a Gen Z edit thing that really hit. We must have gotten 4 million impressions across all the social media channels with that. I think I've had, well over 15 to 20 million impressions on social media in the last few years. And so it's a valuable tool for us to help promote going to the movies. But I did say, please no more costumes because they like to dress me up. I feel like they're like Sid in Toy Story, the kid next door who's torturing the toys, and I'm the tortured toy. But then I said to him recently, please no more dancing. Because through the years, they've had me do these dances, and I'm like, oh my God. And yet they said, oh, I know you banned dancing, but we got this chance to do this thing with the Megan dancers, which we did. We did a Megan thing that actually showed up on CNN when the original Megan came out a few years ago. So I'm like, fine. And so now it's out. And then they, of course, they are maximizing it by putting it in our emails. So then people go look at it.
I mean, you have to talk to your social team. Listen, the moves are good. I'm not saying they're not, but we're going to have to put cinema influencer above your corporate title on LinkedIn soon enough.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they're not good. And in fact, I actually said to the team after we had shot it, we were just shooting it next to the Coliseum at Caesars because the dancers were there. That's how they pulled it off. And I said, well, let me see it just for a minute. I looked at it, I'm like, I look pathetic. And they're like, yes, that's the point.
Well, that's going to come up in the quarterly bonus season, I'm sure. But Greg, thank you so much for joining us here on the Box Office Podcast again.
Absolutely. Anytime.
And a big thank you to Greg Marcus for joining us here on the Box Office Podcast. Earlier, you heard from my colleagues, Rebecca Pahle and Chad Kennerk, in the news section of this show. And this show wouldn't have been possible without the support of our partners over at Arts Alliance Media. Thanks again for listening, and we will be back next week with a new episode.